Good morning again. It's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and it's early in the morning and I'm fired up and ready to go. I just had my wife go down to Big R, that's our local farm store, and get me a couple of cans of coffee because I will need it to get through the next few weeks as I crank out scores of videos. And the coffee keeps me going, and I hope you don't think this is an unchristian thing to say what it says on my coffee cup, because it's all in good jest. Well, the subject of this video is the little Cameron drill press. I've talked about it repeatedly, and this should greatly interest my buddies in Southern California there at Active Atom. Check their channel out, Lance and Patrick. They're so awesome. But here is and they like the small stuff, that's why I mention them. Here is the tag on this little drill press. And this can be regarded as a sensitive drill press, and let me explain what that means in just a minute. But there are people that know how much I like these things, and guess what happened recently? Well, these darn things are reproducing, aren't they? Now I got two of them. That's what I want to talk about in this one. I'll compare the two different ones here and talk a little bit about the chucks, and I did show changing the chuck on this. I've had this for about a month or two now. Let me tell you who gave it to me. One day out of the clear blue sky, Sam sent this to me in a big box, and he lives in Kansas City. And I thank you, Sam, ever so much. You know what? He said he has 8 drill presses, and the one that he bought to replace this one is just huge. And he says, I just have to reduce my inventory a little bit. And mainly that's what I'm doing, is reducing my inventory. But I know every time you watch one of my videos I got something new, but well, that's the way it goes. So let me talk a little bit about the old one here, and or they're probably the same age, I don't know. And then we'll talk about the one from Sam and compare the two of them just a little bit. Let me explain a term first, and I don't think it's used anymore. It must be an archaic term, but smaller drill presses were said to be sensitive drill presses, meaning that as you drilled, you could feel the drill. You could sense that, so you didn't break the drill bit. And in larger drill presses, such as a radial drill press or some of these big ones that Adam has, there would be no feeling at all, or Brian Block. No feeling at all as you drill small holes with small drill bits, and something like this, you would break it instantly because there's just no feeling between you, the operator, and the drill and the work. Well, even more so in these tiny drill presses such as the Cameron, and that's about a 1/16 inch drill bit, and we can drill much smaller holes than that. So that's where the term sensitive drill press comes from, and I would venture a guess that many of you are not even familiar with that term. The Cameron company, and there's their logo, has a nice website, Cameron.com, if you want to check that out, do a search. But you can see they still offer a full line of these little drill presses that would be used in the space age industries or wherever they do real fine work. Many of them with speed controls, and I do have a speed control, not like this. Look at the prices on these. You can see that they are not for the faint of heart, and they offer spare parts and accessories and different things like that too. So give that a check if you feel like it. The original one I have here came from an auction, and I don't know what I paid for it. Not a whole lot, because I just don't pay much for anything. I put a new belt on this just recently. The belt, I'll talk about that in a minute, but you can see the belt was pretty well frayed. And this clamp is on here just as a stop that I added on. I know it looks kind of bad, and I should change that. Well, I'm not going to talk any more about that. This has a little Albrecht chuck, keyless, and I have a video on that, and I forgot what size this is. It's not the smallest one. There is one size smaller than this. This goes up to about, I think, 3/32. And it's precision made enough such that the table moves very, very easily and freely. because quite often you have to make an adjustment on that. There isn't a whole lot of travel. Oh, I guess I put that clamp on there as a depth stop. That's what it was. And it's rack and pinion back here to operate it. We got pulleys on there, step pulleys that are, let's see, 1, 2, 3 steps. So the top speed is a very high speed, higher than I would ever use. It's a little brush type motor, and I think it's a different motor on the other one. Let me see if I can see what the motor tag says. And the switch is right here. It's not operating because I've got it hooked up to a speed control, which I will show you in just a second. Little Gitz oiler here for the bearing. And that's a 1-inch diameter column. There's the oiler for the lower bearing, and I did find the tag here. It's molded right in, and it actually says Cameron on there. So either they made their own motors or they have them made to their specifications. And I don't know how many horsepower it is, but it would be fractional. Do you remember last year when Doug Bollinger, thanks Doug, gave me these tiny little carbide drill bits? And I've got 4 boxes of these in different sizes. These are just really smaller than most of the work that I do. Oh, I'm sure I thanked Doug, but I'm doing it again. And there's, you know, what, 4 boxes of those in all. And I like it when the small diameter bits are short in length. All the less possibility of them breaking or flexing. And these were all metric. This is the plug for the Cameron drill, and I've been using this little Dremel speed control for years. It works great. So that's my on and off switch. I do not use the one on the motor. And of course here you can see that I'm on the lowest speed on the step pulley. And it would be much, much faster than that if I had it on the top pulley, but I don't want it any faster. Love the smell of ozone in the morning. I think as I start to show you some of the details on this machine, you can understand why it's so expensive. Another oiler here for really what would be the pinion. 3 handles, an oiler here also for, well, I guess that's also for the pinion. Maybe I have that wrong. Over here is the spring, and there's a lock right here, and that's what would hold the quill down, or I should say the whole machine. The quill itself doesn't move, does it? And I'm sure those are incredibly precision ball bearings in there. And Lance has talked about the difference between cheaper bearings and precision bearings. When I bought this press, and it could be 20 years ago already, but it was laying in a wheelbarrow. You know how they do it at an auction. They just spread things out. And this, for some reason, was in a wheelbarrow, a rusty wheelbarrow, maybe with a few other things just on its side, pretty much like it was just a piece of junk. Well, on the top of it, and I don't know if it's an option or not, there was a dial indicator that was used as a depth instrument, and that's marked Cameron, but this one isn't in the best of shape. It feels a little sluggish, but let me show you how this mounted on there. And I took it off because I don't worry about real accurate depths, but I certainly could get it if I wanted to. So let me show you how this fits on top along with this fitting. Now this was not included with the other one, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes. I know I haven't gotten to it yet, but there's just a lot to cover, and I'm surprised I didn't make a video on this years ago, because to me it's pretty interesting. Alrighty, I put the depth stop on there just so you can see how it works. And it's actually pretty intricate when you look at it. It mounts right here. There was a threaded hole, and then this little bracket goes around there, and we can move this up and down. I don't know why they got one with a lug on there. That's kind of in the way. And the actual stop for the depth would be right here with this knurled nut, so you don't end up overshooting the dial indicator and damaging it. But we could drill to a very accurate depth using a dial indicator to the thousandth. Alright, why would you want to drill that accurately? I'm back on the Cameron website, and pause your video if you want to read this. Alright, I'll move this one aside, and now I'm going to turn my attention to the one from Sam. There's not a whole lot of difference here, but you can see that, well, for some reason there's an extra pulley there. I don't know why. The motor is just a little bit different, and there's the switch. This has to be tightened up, and that's been bent over a little bit. Need a little attention to the strain reliever there. But it is a 3-wire plug. Now the belt is in real bad shape on this one as well. Well, I had already ordered the belt for the other one and installed that. Well, let's look at the motor here first. $15,000 RPM. 1/15 of a horsepower. The first time I showed this, a man that was watching by the name of Joseph Dermya, and he's out of New Jersey, and he said, I got some extra belts that might fit this, because he could see the terrible condition of this belt. So taking this off real quickly, I did measure it and tell him what the length was, and he said, well, it's not exactly like that, but here's a couple belts, and try them out. Well, they're just a hair too long, as you can see, but I think I can make them fit, but I will have to lengthen this stem here and move the motor a little bit farther back. So they're just a hair too long, but I thank Joe ever so much for doing that. Notice that there is still the residue here of the depth stop on this one. Somebody took it off probably long ago, and I have to correct myself. When I looked at the plug here, it is the old 2-wire plug, which I think dates this as to when they started demanding and requiring grounded plugs and wiring on all appliances and so on. So other than that, this looks to be in real good shape. It's missing the little handle here for the lock, but that would be simple enough. This is just a little bit tight, so I have to clean it up and lubricate it a little bit. It's returning real quickly, but it's a little bit stiff going down. The bearings themselves feel great. The usual little peck marks in the table. What surprises me is there's very few peck marks in the other one, so this is really typical, very typical. That can be swung aside, and then you have a little bit more range if you have a thicker piece of work. I lubricated the column just a little bit, and that really freed it up. I think this spring might be wound a hair too tight, but it's moving quite nicely now. There's the depth stop. Do you remember when I showed this in an earlier video for the first time? There was no chuck on here. There in fact was half of an Albrecht chuck. In other words, that was mounted on there instead of this chuck. Well, I did a video on that, and here is what it looks like. Watch this video if you want, and that's how I removed the Albrecht chuck from this particular drill press, and I'm not going to show that. just telling you what video it is. So in that video, if you watch it, I showed how to remove this, but in order to remove it, I had to make a pair of wedges. So there's another video on that. You can look that up if you're interested. So off came this, and then I had this little Jacob's chuck, and that's about the smallest one they made in stock. But then something really strange happened, and here it is. I think you all know that Ron Cox from Mishawaka, Indiana, gave me that beautiful little South Bend shaper. But while I was up there, he said, you know, I saw your video and noticed that you needed an Albrecht chuck. He said, here's a brand new one left from when I was in the machinery business years ago. So here, brand new, and it's got the Enco name on it. This is an original super drill chuck. It's no fake, it's original. And it's the number 15, and it only goes up to 1/16 of an inch. So we're going to have an unboxing. This has never been out of the box. So here it is, the number 15, and this is the KBC catalog, and I showed this one other time. But there's the number 15 with the 0 Jacob's taper. It only goes up to a 1/16. And that thing is almost $500. Now, the chuck that's on the other camera on here is this one, the number 30 that goes to an 1/8. That's what I mentioned. I said I need to buy that. I still see a check mark there, but it was $368, which is why I put this Jacob's chuck on that I had in stock. So this will come off. And this will go on, but not in this video. I don't need to make another video on that. But this has been in stock so long, or in Ron's basement, that there is the price. It was $106 whenever that label was put on, and this is long before any barcodes. So let's open this up. See what it looks like. Hope it's not rusty. And now the unboxing of the Albrecht chuck. Still in the original paper. And there it is in perfect shape. That must be an oily type of paper from Germany. This is a 1/16 inch drill bit, and that's the very largest that it will accommodate. And notice the little graduations. And a little set screw here to tighten that collar apparently, and that's again a number 0 Jacob's taper. Look at the precision. I guess we might say no wonder it cost $400. And let's see, on the box it did say from 0. In other words, it will hold a very tiny bit. Let's take a look at some real tiny drill bits, shall we? I keep my real little drill bits, appropriately called tiny drill bits, in a Harvester cigar box. And you know, these were good cigars, I suppose. I never smoked one. But a 9-center was expensive, when you could buy one for a nickel, a White Owl or some craziness like that. All right, so cracking myself up. You know, these are the tiny, I've shown this before, number bits, number 60 to number 80. Well, that doesn't even show up there. Let me show you another index here. Now, do not confuse this index with this index. Again, this is numbers 60 through 80. The tiniest one there being an 80. So, and you can get smaller bits than this, a lot smaller for clock making. So, But I never go that small. You know, you'd break that within a tenth of a second. These are for demonstration purposes only. It saddens me greatly that Enco went out of business. It got absorbed by, oh, that big company, you know, but they're just buying out the competition. It's that simple. But I used to buy a lot from them. But these are, who cares? Number bits, and in the standard 1 through 60, you know, that's the smallest. And it looks like that one broken off, doesn't it? So this is 1 through 60, and if you wanted the smaller ones, of course, you would get this little index. I know I just repeated myself, but probably nobody needs these or wants them. And you know, since I put this chuck on, I ordered from KBC a little KO chuck key. So let me take that drill bit out of there, whatever size that is. And now I'll take that chuck off of there. Did you watch my video where I made these little wedges? So I'm going to take that off and put the new one on. Have you noticed that a lot of my videos now are a collaboration? So I thank Sam for giving me the drill press. I thank Ron for giving me the Albrecht. Well, I've got that loosened up. Off it comes. And remember, that is a number 0. That's the very smallest. You've seen me do this countless times, so I'm probably silly repeating it. Yes. In this little clip here, I just wanted to contrast the difference in size between the number 15 Albrecht and the number 30. And I always thought that this was tiny. Of course, they're both keyless chucks, but you know, this is really amazing. You could do such small work with this. Eat your heart out, Lance Conway. The coffee's wearing off. I better hurry up and get this video over with. Here's a neat feature. I don't know if I've ever seen this on a drill press, but to change the belt from step to step, you just tilt the motor up a little bit. And you can move it into different positions. That's pretty neat. And gravity would hold it down. However, if gravity doesn't hold it down, just in case, there's a little knurled knob over here. Boy, they didn't miss a thing, did they, when they designed this? So here's my original camera with a 1/16 drill bit, and now the newer one with the number 60 drill bit. This is a paragraph from the Cameron site. I don't think they'll mind, but you can see that the spindle speeds are 9,500, 17,000, and 30,000 RPM. Of course, with a variable attachment, you have many other speeds as well, but those would be the standard speeds. I'm not really sure you need a vise when you do this small work, but this is the vise that I made in videos several years ago, you may remember. Even it looks outrageously large, and I think the Starrett vise would be more in proportion to the machine. You know, I've done this little shtick before, but I'm comparing here the Dumore, which would be much cheaper. I doubt they still make this, but this would be a much cheaper little drill press than what the Cameron is. But I don't like the appearance of this. I talked about that before. It looks too much like a malted milk machine. Anyone care for a shake? Do you see what it... Do you see what I mean? I'm cracking myself up again. And I have a rhetorical question for you. Why would anyone in the entire world have a milkshake when they could actually have a malt instead? I guess if you were raised on malts with an egg on them, in them, you know, oh, forget it. Well, that concludes this 5-minute video that turned into a 25-minuter. Thanks for watching. This is tubalcain. So long for now.